Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Cleanse Heal Ignite podcast with me, Dr. Diane Kaiser. We are on Warrior Wednesday. Saw if you listen to the Peptide episode, make it this one. It is April 8th, 1 week after April Fools, where we apparently are fools that we believe that we're doing something cool when we're flying to and or around the moon. We are going to talk about what's changing in the peptide industry, what to do next. And actually, we have a webinar coming up. And Paula, if you could fly down the date below on the little slider, the date that's coming up and how to enroll, that's going to be dianekaiser.com/webinars. It's April 23rd, Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern time. For those of you who I have so many friends reaching out to me and they have a whole bunch of questions. And unfortunately, I always tell them we are serving thousands of people every single day. And so I want to be able to help you, but don't have enough time. Then I want to help and as many people as I can on this webinar. So if you've never been in our VIP group, or if you've been somebody who wants to know how to get started with peptides as a specific issue, challenge, goal, this is the place to bring these questions, especially because so many things are changing very quickly in the peptide industry that we really want to help you guys feel empowered before the changes set in and you say to yourself, which we never like to say is, I wish I would have known this before. Because there are certain peptides that if you guys have heard my podcast before, I talk about that are going out of access, I should say, from the research peptide space, and they are moving into compound pharmacies. And the only way to get them will be through a 503 company that compounds, and you will have to apply to be a patient. You will have to do certain testing, and you will only have a very brief amount of time with a specialist, a doctor who will compound the peptides for you. And they'll be happy to compound them for you for 4 to 10 times more than what you can currently pay through the research grade companies that I can recommend that you consider. And I first have to say this is not medical advice. This is for research purposes only, entertainment, and education purposes only. So any of these research grade peptides that I'm talking about, you're going to hear a lot of people in the industry. There's now, I call it peptide wars. I've been calling it that for a couple of years now because there's a lot of people that have God complex in this industry, and there's a lot of shirtless men who are out there on Instagram. We call it bro science peptide recommendations, and they're getting out there and they're talking about peptides for the very reason that many people selfishly have goals to do, which is to lose weight, to build muscle. But you guys, it could come at a cost if you're getting peptides that are coming from a company that don't have what we call CTA, certificate of analysis. And if you're buying research grade peptides from some of these people, they have links, affiliate links on their websites, and there is no COA, then to me that says there is no customer. There is no, for me at least, and this is how I approach it. So I like to say that the way we approach peptides is a bit more, and regenerative health in general is a lot more conservative, is a lot more nurturing, and is a lot more logical, because what we focus on first before you jump into any peptide is the foundations. That's what we talk about in our VIP group, which is where we're going to be joining afterwards here with Coach Lisa. So if you guys are considering being a part of that and what you get from that, if you go to dianekaiser.com/VIP, you can see the rundown. We have 2 different VIP groups. One is more the foundations, and we're talking about everything that you need to know so that ideally you're working on your terrain first, which doesn't seem to be the thing that people want to do. They want to hit the easy and simple button, but I'm going to talk today about why the easy and simple button can actually result in a more complicated future for you and the results of that, because there is always a consequence. There is always a cost to hitting the easy button and thinking that there is one magic pill or even just one peptide that can do all the things that your body, as a beautiful collective soccer team, 11 different systems working together as the constellation that you are made by your creator to communicate with. There is no one easy button. There is no one peptide. Your body works synergistically. And so today I'm going to be talking about some of that as well, going deeper into the webinar with some Q&A for you guys. But after this, we always meet Coach Lisa. Today we'll be talking about the foundations, everything that we support you guys with in the Warrior Cleanse, the Parasite Full Moon Challenge, Explant Solution, the Peptide Power Course. Everything that you need is in educational materials that are all in the DIY space. So a lot of the things you'll hear me repeat, and I have been over the last, since 2009, 17 years since I started doing this. And really since I became a personal trainer at the age of 17, I was a pro soccer player. If you guys don't know anything about me, I was also a competitive bikini competitor at the national level. I was a professional soccer player in also in Germany, in the Bundesliga. I played semi-pro and professional in the United States. with a lot of World Cup players like Megan Rapinoe. So anyway, I'm a high level athlete. And what I'm seeing is a lot of people that are in the bro science space, and I would even call it science, but they're talking heads on Instagram and a lot of other places in social media that are giving you peptide advice, and they're not doing it in a nurturing way that starts with terrain. So peptides are going to work better when your body is more balanced. And a lot of people think, okay, I'm going to do the peptides first. I'm going to do the easy button, and then I'll start working on my terrain. Then I'll start working on eating less and eating healthier. It doesn't work like that, you guys. So a lot of people that I'm seeing today are really struggling. I always say there's four real big things that ends with the fifth thing, and it's broken brain, body pain, energy drain, and weight gain, which results in the symptom train. All of that is really truly caused by four things. And that's circulation problems, challenges, I should say, cell signaling, inflammation, and insulin resistance. So, yes, peptides can help turn down the fires of inflammation. They can fix insulin issues. We've seen the data, we're seeing the clinical trials, we've seen the research over the last 40 years, 50 years coming out of other countries that have been doing this for a very, very long time. But the thing is that if we don't get to the root of what was starting the fires, the root that caused the insulin resistance, the blockages in your body that's causing your inflammation, that is causing the stagnation that results in circulation challenges, and then cell signaling is as a result of poisons, which and pathogens, which are mostly parasites. And so those four things are the main root causes that, yes, you can see on lab testing, blood testing, but the average doctor is only testing for an average CBC. They only look at things like TSH instead of looking at a complete thyroid panel. What we do in the ministry and in our elite VIP group, if you guys wanted to purchase labs through us, we offer blood testing that's advanced. We look at tumor markers, we look at complete blood panels, we're looking at sex hormones, we're looking at a complete thyroid panel, as well as everything that has to do with metabolism and mitochondria. So if you have challenges with those two things, which we see across the board with all of our patients when they first come to us, contrary to working with dozens of doctors and even air quotes, the best doctors in the United States, spending thousands, tens of thousands, most of the time, hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars that gets billed to their insurance, a portion of which they pay, the patient pays, but they're still not getting anywhere. Because we have to look deeper at the advanced blood markers that can really give us some clues as to what's going on at a deeper level. And that gives us a better framework to start with which peptides make the most sense. Now, I will say that there is not just peptides, there's also something called bioregulators. Those are in capsule form. Both of those are just strands of amino acids. So, what are peptides? What are bioregulators? If we're looking at bioregulators, it could be typically like 2 to 3 different amino acids sequenced together in capsule form. And then peptides are more than that, 4 or more than that. And that's when you're hearing from things like BPC, TB500, GHKCU. So they're longer. They're just longer chains of amino acids. They can come in capsule form. They can come in intranasal form. They can come in injectable form. Some people are needle phobes when they first start this journey. Then once they learn that really the body, when you inject, it's 100% bioavailable versus when you take it in capsule form, it's more isolated to working with the gut, and it's not as systemic. If you're using them in intranasal form, yes, they go to the brain. It's close to the brain. So we do work with those things for people who have like mood-related dysfunction, neurological dysfunction, and any kind of issues with sleep or mold that loves to live in the brain, because 65% of the brain is fat and mold loves to live in fat. So we have a lot of different types of peptides that can work in different areas of the body. We like to customize all of that to you. That's what I talk about in the Peptide Power Course, as well as Elite VIP, as where I can answer your questions. And if you're like, I just want to figure out more about how to help my situation, come to the webinar. I'll help you as much as possible, and I'll guide you guys on exactly where to go. But all these different peptides at a fundamental level, and this is why I said, if you've never heard anything about peptides, or if you only hear one peptide webinar or one peptide podcast of mine, listen to this one, because people need to understand that there's a lot of people talking about peptides out in the world right now, and it's becoming a war. Literally, there's, like I said, a lot of God complexes. This guy's bad, this guy's girl, and it's really a war on, I'm sorry to say this, and I'm not like sexist or anything, but it's really men. It's mostly men that are warring against each other. And yes, there is a lot of fraud. Leaders out there, talking heads, one specifically that a lot of people really respect, has actually lost his medical license and is no longer a doctor, but he's still claiming he's a doctor. He had it taken away for fraud. He's frauded like hundreds of different patients. There's reports that you could research on him. And he also has a lot of fraudulent things that he's done where he's been kicked out of certain groups, but people are listening to him and he has, good information. However, he spouts a lot of science that's not true. And he's also reading mostly from a script. Even though, I do have slides and I like to prepare for these shows with those things. My main point is we have resources that are going to help you guys at the holistic level where we're talking about peptides from a perspective of how can we help the whole body. And some of you are out there going, okay, I really cannot stop eating junk. What can I do to stop this? And you maybe have tried everything and you should be eating better. There's a lot of different solutions for you out there, but you feel powerless to your cravings. There are things that you can do to support that at first without being so aggressive, because the GLPs is where most people go straight to. And I'm going to talk about the consequences of that today, because this is something I'm seeing over and over. And I'm having these conversations ad nauseum because what people tend to do is they follow the main message that most people are saying. There's like 12% of the population right now that is on some form of GLP. Now, GLP, and this is what I needed to really make sure I distinguish for you all. The word peptides is getting lumped in to one thing, and it's not. So first of all, your body makes 8,000 peptides on its own every day. And as you get older, your body is less able to cell signal as much with these peptides. It's not able to receive the message, send the message, etc. The main interference for that is what I always call the four main key drivers of that, which is stress, hormonal imbalances, infections, and toxicity. That spells shit. So the reason you feel like shit is because of shit. I have all kinds of mnemonics for you guys to remember these things. And then what that leads to is inflammation, insulin resistance, circulation problems, and cell signaling, the IICC. That's what we're going to see on your blood test. Now, the average medical doctor that you go talk to, and most even functional medicine doctors today, when you go to ask them for a standard CBC, or actually when you go in and say, I want some advanced blood testing, they're going to probably just give you a standard CBC. Oftentimes in the past, when I used to go to doctors just to get some, data, and now I just run my own labs because we have our own clinic that you guys can order labs through. If you're in our elite VIP, you get discounts, you could book calls with me, et cetera. So I highly recommend that. We just kicked it off yesterday, had a really great group in there. That's where our diehards are, like the people who really, really want this for themselves. The ones who are super DIY, they want to learn to be their own best doctor. They want to learn how to do these things so they stay away from their medical doctor and the hospital fraud system. So anyway, most doctors today, if you go talk to them and ask them about peptides, their level of knowledge is limited to, peptides, Ozempic, you mean, which is semaglutide. And they're talking about having shortages again, and they're always going to play this game. And these things, yes, they're synthetic, and yes, they're produced to look exactly like the peptides that we make. But they're always going to do this. Just like right now, we have oil shortages and all these shortages. A lot of these things are just as synthetic as the peptides that are made. And people ask, not all of that is just designed to create fear and lack in your life, right? So that you feel afraid and that you're desperate for something. So yes, they're synthetic, but people ask, okay, well, if they're synthetic, then aren't they bad for you? No, some of them can be though. That's why you have to be very careful about where you resource and research and purchase your peptides. So these ones we talk about are research grade for research grade purposes. That's how we can get around access without having to buy them for, like, at this point, semaglutide, that is the peptide, that is an Ozempic. Then you have tirzepatide, and that's in other ones. You have Manjaro, Wegovy, et cetera. So, and they come in pen form. And I did a whole podcast on this you can listen to about 3 weeks ago with Coach Carrington, who's in the Chi Ministry with me. And she's helped a lot of people with GLPs in the past, working with other doctors, and had tremendous results. That was before we even had retatrutide. Now, like I mentioned, and I've been mentioning on every podcast, peptides are becoming more and more limited because a lot of people, and you're going to hear MDs say, we should not be using peptides until the FDA researches them. Okay. For me, I don't want to touch anything that the FDA makes. I don't want to touch anything that the FDA has done any research on or has added other things to, because the only way that we could have these things in pens, Ozempic, and it doesn't need to be put in a fridge, is because they put in preservatives. which comes with a lot of toxins. It's said that there's a lot of other things in there too, like who knows, but we've seen graphene oxide in them and a lot of other preservatives that are very, very bad and toxic for you. And not only that, semaglutide is such old school. It's like having a flip phone or a pager these days when we really have iPhones. And even, I have an iPhone 15. Most people are on what, 1800 or something at this point. But using peptides that are research grade from a quality company is very intelligent at this point for you to consider. Because, like I mentioned in other podcasts, the prices are going to go up when they go into compound pharmacies. They will cost you more. And like I mentioned earlier, you're going to have a doctor that's going to help you with this. And they do not do a deep dive with you the way that we do in our ministry, the way that we do in our VIP group, with our patients and our programs. The terrain is everything. The more that, and what I mean by terrain is that you're cleansing your body on a semi-regular basis. You're doing parasite cleanses at least every quarter. We talk about all of that in my ministry in the VIP group. If you're elite VIP, you got access to all of my courses. So I would just go that route because you get, it's like the whole library of everything that I've created over the last 15 years. And you get all of that. So you don't have to buy anything a la carte. It's just all included. And then also reducing your toxic burden in your environment, because one big key root driver for insulin resistance and obesity and weight gain and what I call false fat, which is inflammation, is mold. And we did a test of 18 patients this past quarter, the first quarter of 2026. We had 18 patients in a root cause reset group, which we're teaching them to learn their own labs, what their urinary analysis means as far as what toxins that they had coming out of them. And then we helped them explore their environment, where it was coming from, so that we could turn down the exposure. That's what I mean by terrain. The other thing that I mean by terrain, what we looked at with all of these 18 patients is everybody had toxic levels of mold coming out of their body, which means that everybody had in some way exposure to mold, whether it was coming from the food that they were eating, mostly grains, mold coming from their environment, from their HVAC, from the tic-tac-toe lines in the sky, which we do now know because of the work of Dane Wigington. There has been mold spores in there, candida, fungal spores, or also the things that they maybe have been exposed to in the past. Carpets harbor a lot of mold. There's a lot of things that people do not even realize on where they're getting exposed to mold. Also, food that should have been thrown away a long time ago. So there's a lot of things that we talked about in this root cause reset group. But the one thing that they all had in common is that everybody had high levels of mold, toxic. That's going to equal obesity and weight gain. And then therefore, people who were getting off of Ozempic, they gain weight 4 times faster than dieters alone. Why? Because they never addressed the terrain. They never got rid of the mold. They never got rid of their environmental exposure to the mold. They never changed their diet. Maybe they did a little bit because they food restricted and they're calorically dense and they're only like 500 calories a day, like the HCG diet back in the 80s and the 90s that never worked long-term. Why? Because it doesn't address the terrain. The other thing that these 18 cohorts had as well was high level of environmental toxins. Now that was variable across the board. However, all 18 of them had high levels of herbicides, pesticides. What does that mean? And I went through the whole group and explained all of this. And I'll get to peptides and what this all means about peptides and what you guys can do instead of what you guys are programmed to do when you're, at the point of broken brain, energy drain, weight gain, body pain. And because this is a theme that I'm seeing now as people's bodies, brains are falling apart. No matter what the age at this point. I've shared in several other podcasts right now that colorectal cancer is more common in the youth than it is in the elder population. We're talking like high levels of colorectal cancer. This is not just genetic, you guys. This is biome. This is toxic burden. This is parasites. This is pathogens. This is poisons. This is why we have to address this. Okay. So when people have high levels of pesticides and herbicides, then they go, well, I eat all organic. Well, what's your air quality like? Where are you exposed to it? So I don't want to get too deep into the exposure to it today, but I do want to point out that these are the toxins that are making us fat. These are the toxins that are making us fat, sick, and nearly dead, and exhausted, and inflamed, and sick, chronically ill, and cancer ridden. That's what's happening. So when we're addressing environment, and you're also working on the terrain within, and then you start bringing in peptides, things work so much better. And you can go listen to Wendy Dorn, a podcast we had, I think it was about a month ago, her success story. We didn't even bring in GLPs, aka retatrutide, which is so much better than the other two, semaglutide and tirzepatide. She lost 12 pounds in 1 month because her body was ready for it. If we gave that to her in month 1 before we addressed the terrain and reduced her toxic exposure and changed her diet and her macros and made sure she was moving enough, she would have possibly gained as much weight, but it might have been more coming from muscle and bone. And what we are seeing is that people who are taking things like Ozempic, 30 to 40% of it is coming, the weight loss is coming from bone and connective tissue. And also, I know people on tirzepatide, same thing. They're getting injured. But when she did her DEXA scan, or one that was equivalent, I think it was something like 2% of it. 2% of it was coming from connective tissue or bone. The other 98% came from fat. That is a true example of when you do GLPs right. And by the way, the reason why GLP production, you make GLPs in the gut. We talked about this in another episode. I'm kind of summarizing a whole bunch of the podcasts that I've done in the past in one. So it's kind of like the highlight reel of why peptides. But the main reason why we are not making healthy levels of GLP in our gut, which is where it's made, because that's how it got synthesized from. And everybody's like, oh, it's venom. It's coming from the Gila monster venom. No, it's not. The Gila monster produces GLPs just like we do in our gut. So they synthesized it from that, and they took the molecular chain of it and then made it a peptide that we could inject. Or you could also take in capsule form, but much more bioavailable when you're injecting it, and much more cost effective, because it's said to be 98% not bioavailable when you're taking it in capsule form. So I think it's a waste. And if you're the kind of person that doesn't really want to do injections, you could also do something like SLUP, SLUPP. We have also seen that in my studies, people who have just taken SLUP, just one capsule or 2 capsules a day, they lose, the mice lost 12% of their body weight in the first month. 12%. So if you're somebody who's a little bit squeamish about needles, or if you're somebody who just wants to work on metabolic repair, mitochondria dysfunction, and also wants to burn fat at the same time and increase your endurance, because we did see in my studies that SLUP has increased endurance by over 70% in 1 month with the mice, that's a greater alternative to start with. And that is, in fact, what we do with our patients. We start them with something more conservative like SLUP, maybe something like a 5-amino 1-MQ in capsule form, which is also going to work on metabolism and also muscle gain. I always say there's 4 things: mitochondria, metabolism, muscle building, and melting fat. If we're doing all of those 4 things and we're addressing the terrain at the same time and eating healthy, nutrient-dense foods and detoxing as much as possible and improving the healthy gut microbes that make your healthy GLPs, you have long-term success. So going back to what I was saying about GLPs, you need certain healthy gut microbes to make GLPs in your gut. Why are they all of a sudden going so extinct where it's so popular to take a GLP in injection form? Why? Because there's a lot of specific microbes that are responsible for making GLPs. Bifidobacteria is one of them. And there was a big study that was done by, not a huge study, but it was a doctor who followed several of her patients who had taken the COVID shot in 2021. And she found on their stool analysis that every single one of them, their bifidobacteria was wiped out. Whoa. Bifidobacteria represents 80% of our gut microbes that builds our immune system when we're younger. So it's about 80% by the time we're 2 years old. It's a very important. And so when I say gut microbe, I'm talking about when you take probiotics, it populates healthy gut microbes in the gut. We are 98% bug, whether we like to admit it or not, right? So that's what comprises you physically and biologically. So when we're talking about things like this, then we can really support GLP production when you have the right healthy gut microbes. In fact, there are certain things too we help our patients with. There's probiotics they're called GLP probiotic. And it has these missing microbes that we see in so many patients when we look at their stool analysis. So what I try to do is take a look at behind the scenes work that we do with our patients, the patterns that we're seeing, the things that are successful, and then bring them to you guys, just in case if you never decide to be a patient, you know what's going to help you become your own best doctor. The other thing that's missing, what makes healthy GLPs, is eating more fiber, eating more protein, exercise, hydration, sleep. I mean, these are all things that need to be there. And people are like, yeah, I'll sleep when I'm dead. That's like the new, teenager thing to say, the new millennium thing to say. But anyway, I digest, I regress. Anyway, I'm just being cheeky at this point. I want to get into the slides because I did want to share a few things that I'm seeing in our population right now. So the bottom line is peptides are essential, I believe. I do not believe that right now we can get away from what's happening in our world environmentally. There's poisons, there's pathogens, there's parasites that are engineered biologically to be injected in us. So we're breathing things in. We're getting old. Yes, we're getting older. Yes, there's genetics. Yes, all of that stuff does play a role. But genetics are less than 5% of it. And we're all breathing in the same air and we're all drinking the same unfiltered, typically tap water that is not really. And we've done a lot of podcasts about the importance of distilled water and several shows back you can listen to with my friend Courtney of My Pure Water and why I recommend distilled. We're always talking about drainage, the importance of drainage, things like doing castor oil packs and using a vibrating plate to stand on, saunas, which if you're using them 4 times a week can reduce all-cause mortality by over 40% and also death by over 40%. I mean, these things are huge. Yes, if you're, so daring to do a coffee enema, go for that. I talk about all those things, but some people will never shove these things up their butt or garlic because I talk about that a lot on my social media and that one's gone totally viral. But anyway, drainage is important. If you guys start melting fat with things like GLPs without having your drainage pathways open, you're going to have a problem and your body's going to start breaking down muscle, connective tissue, and bone instead. And your long-term self, your future self is not going to like you. So here I am, Dr. Diane Kaiser, showing up as your future self saying, hey, there's another way. And let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. What if you could lose just as much, if not more weight in 6 months, being sustainable about loving your body and not taking GLPs because you hate your body and you want to lose weight at an accelerated rate, of which 40% or up to 40% could be bone, muscle, and connective tissue. What is the point of losing weight if you're becoming more frail, immobile, lacking muscle, and now your skin is sagging because you're losing connective tissue peptide signaling, which would be things like copper. And then all of a sudden your face is dripping and you look older and you have wrinkles. Okay. So there's a better way to do this. And that is the approach I always like to take. My name is Dr. Diane Kaiser. I am a board certified doctor of traditional naturopathy. And I put my hand up to say, I am here to pledge my Hippocratic oath to first do no harm. That's number one. Number two is what can we do strategies with helping you to heal holistically, transform your entire body and your environment such that are effective, the least toxic, and the most reasonable financially. And then also bring together your now self, your past self. What I mean by that is past, what have you been exposed to? What kind of surgeries have you had? What kinds of things might be missing in your genetics? What could have you, what also prescriptions might you have taken? Like for me, I took Accutane and I also didn't have my period for like 8 years because I was injected with a synthetic progesterone, and I didn't have my period for 8 years. So that definitely messed up my hormones. Many things that we have done in the past, and also Cipro, that's another black box warning drug, or Botox. I've done it. I've been through all that stuff. That's your past. So I want to bring together in my Hippocratic Oath pledge the whole constellation of you. There's the now you, there's the what you've been through, what you've been exposed to, what you didn't know before. There's the now you, and I'm giving you all the tools of what you need to know now so you can make better decisions so that the future you is happy and grateful that you're doing these things now with a doctor and a team that looks at this maturely, realistically, holistically, and as naturally as possible. So let's get into the slides because this is actually dedicated to a lot of my friends that recently have had some significant injuries, who are doing GLPs. What I would say is GLPs done wrong. And then also want to get into a lot of people who are getting, injured without even it being like an overuse thing. So let's just look at the disclaimer. We have our friendly legal disclaimer here. This is not medical advice. It's for edutainment. I always do that. Educational and informational purposes only. It's not medical advice, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Now, next, if you have never met me before, here is my education and certification so that you know my background. I come from a vast background of health, yoga, traveling the world. I've been to close to 30 countries. I've traveled extensively and worked with many doctors and other cultures and how they live, how they eat, how they are regenerative with their approaches, and just how they ground down and how happy they can be. So I've done that a lot, taught yoga, a lot of different yoga retreats and things all around the world. I've researched EMF, the toxicity of that. One of the number one reasons why we're so tired today is people are significantly exposed to EMF exposure. Okay, now let's move on to the next slide. And I wanted to show you this. This is one of the ones, and Paul, if you could split the screen so it's showing me as well as the slides, that'd be great. Oh, you can't really see it, can you? Well, Maybe you can. You just can't see the small print if I'm sharing my slides. Right now, one of the things that we are seeing that I mentioned already, and this is a post that was inspired by my friend Dr. Jess, you are paying to have your bones shredded. Meaning when I say you are paying, people are paying $1,200, $1,500 a month for Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, sometimes less because maybe your insurance might cover it. Research shows that GLP-1 medications are burning fat, but they're also stripping away your bone density. So this is what I meant earlier. And you can see a lot of this information if you just go do your own research. ChatGPT or Claude or anything else will help you with this, but it's not always telling the truth because I often find lately, especially with ChatGPT, it's been pushing back on me a lot and it's going very programmed with what it's fed from, the elites. Let's look at challenge number one because I'm seeing that people are doing something right now. They're exhausted and they're desperate, right? And I understand that. Yesterday, I was exhausted and I was like, I am not doing coffee. I actually am taking a break from coffee right now because I find that I sleep like shit when I drink coffee, and especially if it's after 10 o'clock. No matter if I take melatonin and L-theanine and all the other things like GABA and even D-SIP, which is a peptide to try to fall asleep, I still can't fall asleep that well. So I'm opting out of caffeine right now, but I find that I have a tremendous amount of energy. And of course, I'm going to get into a few peptides that I love today that I'm doing instead. And that's what I'm using for my fuel. And my brain feels clearer. I don't feel as all over the place. I don't feel as anxious. And I feel more grounded in my body. And when I go to the gym, people are like, what kind of drugs are in your drink? Because they see my endurance. And I'm like, well, I got some creatine in here. I put 10 grams of creatine in my water. It's distilled water also. But I'm also using a few specific peptides. But I'm not unrealistic about it. I think that there's combinations that are realistic for you guys. I don't advocate for anything more than like 4 to 5 bioregulators and 4 to 5 peptides at any one given time. Optimistically, 3 and 3. And I'll get into what I mean by bioregulators in a minute, especially if you're on a GLP, you should be on pancreas bioregulator. I'll get into that in a little bit. Okay, but let's look at this. The challenge is most people you're running on empty and using the wrong fuel. What most people do is coffee and caffeine spikes. What that does is it drains the shit out of your adrenals. And I'm talking about your future self right now is saying to your now self, hey, can we please just chill out on the caffeine because our adrenals are breaking down here. So what your adrenals are responsible for doing is making stress, sex, and sleep hormones. So if you're using caffeine or coffee to give you energy at any time of the day, your adrenals are like, okay, well, I don't need to make any cortisol because they're getting cortisol and adrenaline from the outside. And so therefore the adrenals get exhausted and they don't really get exhausted, but they adjust. Let's just say that they're adaptogenic. Cortisol is not just there to give you energy. It's there as an anti-inflammatory. It is a firefighter. It puts out a lot of the flames. When I said inflammation is a problem, it's what I call false fat. You start to look more puffy, a little bit of that extra gut weight, that 5 pounds that you're feeling like, why can't I get rid of this last 5 pounds? Or maybe it's, 100. But your cortisol is highly responsible for being a strong firefighter or a team of fighters for putting out fires. And when you're doing caffeine on a regular basis, your adrenals are like, oh, all right, I'm gonna check out. Or if you have low T, or if you have estrogen deficiencies or progesterone deficiencies, what happens is your body will prioritize cortisol production and at the expense of your melatonin, which is your sleep hormone, and your sex hormones, which is your testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone. So it's a lot healthier when we're looking at your hormones by saying what is draining it, not just what can I do to make my hormones healthier. Because everybody wants, and I hear this from women all the time, what do I do for my hormones? I need some HRT. And I'm like, hold on a minute. What are you doing to drain your hormones? What are you doing to stress your hormones? Stress, hormone imbalance, infections, and toxicity. So the infections I talked about earlier, the pathogens, the fungal overgrowth, the mold, the parasites, those are draining the crap out of your entire body, your endocrine system. But specifically, they actually, when you have more parasites and poisons, it's actually responsible for making tumors. And people go, oh, I have cancer. We got to cut the tumor out. What is the question needs to be, why did the tumor start to begin with? And how do we address that? How do we remove that? That's why we're always talking about builders and blockers. What are the blockers that are preventing you from having healthy hormones or not getting cancer? And what are the builders that we could do to prevent cancer and also have healthy hormones, right? So that's very, very important to consider. Not just what do I do, but also what do I undo? Okay, so let me go back to what I was saying also. Is a lot of people are struggling with, and I mentioned this earlier, in 18 of our cohorts, everybody had these environmental toxins. Everybody had pesticides. Pesticides, they are not only loaded with aluminum, which loves the brain and starts to drain it and destroy your neurological system and your mood, and also destroys connective tissue, but it's also loaded with other chemicals. So these things are called xenoestrogens that drives up your estrogen for men and women. And these are the things that also contribute to cancer. So rather than just doing coffee, this is also why I'm talking about this ad nauseum, because if we're just doing coffee and all of these things to get energy without addressing why we're low in energy and also without destroying our endocrine glands, let's first look at what are the perpetrators of why you have said problems with your hormones. It's hard to stop coffee. I know 90% plus of the population, at least in America, drinks it. But also it's typically loaded in mold. And most people don't realize that unless you're getting mold tested, mold free coffee. So you need your adrenals, you need your thyroid. In fact, it's very common when I work with patients, when we're first starting them off, I start with bioregulators that are working to support the reigniting of their adrenal gland and their thyroid gland. So I start with adrenal and thyroid bioregulator, and usually something like central nervous system and blood vessel dilator. That's a really great place to start. If you've never done bioregulators, and we're going to talk a lot more about this on the webinar, those are 4 great bioregulators to start with, because most people are just completely destroying their thyroid, but their doctor's only looking at TSH and they're like, oh, TSH is in range, everything's fine. But oftentimes we see these patients come to see us, we do an advanced thyroid blood panel on them, and they're like, oh, they have full on Hashimoto's, they have full on antibodies to their thyroid. Why? Poisons and parasites and EMF. Okay, so that's why we're always looking at environment as well, not just here's a peptide, here's a peptide. And if you do have tumor markers, which we look at, there are certain peptides that might not be good for you, including BPC, because it promotes angiogenesis. So this is all stuff that we talk about in our ministry, in the VIP group with patients, and we will be talking about this on the webinar. Okay, so let me get back to the slide. Squirrel. What to do instead of just caffeine or coffee is NAD. I'm super stoked. If you guys go to just go to dianecager.com/peptides instead of saying www. I don't need to say all that. Go to dianecager.com/peptides. Paula, if you could fly that on the bottom so they could see the banner. You have access to 3 different companies that I am not allowed to say promote. That, what can I say? That we like, that we suggest that you consider, because this is not medical advice, right? But Biolongevity has NAD. People have been asking about this for months. We haven't had NAD with Limitless. So now I just found out we do have NAD as by itself as a peptide that you can get from Biolongevity. So amazing. So many people love NAD. Many people just go to people like functional medicine clinics, nurses, to have NAD injected, and they do an NAD drip. It takes hours. But what if you could do it at home? What if it's less expensive? Awesome. It's going to be great for mitochondrial energy. Mitochondria means that is what your cells make for energy. When you can employ your own cells to make energy for yourselves, you won't need all of these other things from the outside. You won't be tired all day. You won't need the quick fix. You won't need to stand in a 15,000 person around the corner Starbucks line that's selling the most mold-laden, pesticide-rich, high GMO, trans fat, high sugar drink in the world that's funded by Bill Gates. That's truly mind control. I mean, sorry, now I'm going on another tangent, but you won't. I mean, I see people do this all the time, coffee for survival, right? And then they go spend $10 on a coffee that's destroying their GLP production and their insulin issues and insulin signaling. And they wonder why they have fatty liver disease. And 1/3 of the population has it, especially children at this point. So we got to stop this. Sugar is another reason why you can't make your own GLP. So I'm just going to blame it on Starbucks, the GLP issue, the GLP extinction in your gut, and why GLPs are working to help people lose weight, which includes their connective tissue and their bones and their muscles, is because of Bill Gates and Starbucks. See, I made the connection. Okay, podcast over. But in all honesty, I'm serious. I don't touch that. I don't touch that shit. Nope. No, thank you. Not in the Starbucks. Too much aluminum, too much heavy metals, too much sugar, too much GMOs, too much trans fat, and then also I haven't even mentioned inside lining of the cups, it's all these PFAS, forever chemicals, and plastic and junk. Like, no thanks. Just no. Okay. Back to what I was saying. Instead of Starbucks, instead of caffeine, you might want to try NAD. There's another really good blend that I love from Biolongevity, and oh my God, I haven't even taken my peptides today, but I have a lot of energy. A really beautiful one is NAD, 5-amino-1-MQ, and MOTC. That's a game changer. That's a combination blend you can get from Biolongevity, and my coupon codes are on the link that you guys see below. Okay, I talked about this earlier, but what a lot of people are doing, and what you can do instead to lose weight, is instead of just going straight to the GLPs, and this didn't spell this right, so I didn't check this, but my little slide creator from ChatGPT did not organize this the way I spelled it. But most people, what they're doing to lose weight on the second line, it's like they go for semaglutide, they go for tirzepatide, and a lot of people are taking tirzepatide in capsule form. Don't recommend it. Also Ozempic or Wegovy or Mounjaro, it's expensive, it's toxic, it's got tons of preservatives, and no doctors are talking about how to do this the right way by eating enough protein, exercising, and doing it holistically, because no GLP should ever be taken what I call naked. You need to be doing the right things. GLPs are dangerous if you don't do this the right way. I'll say it again. GLPs are dangerous if you do not do this the right way. And I already showed you bone loss issues and what we're seeing in the data. We don't even know what this stuff will do to us in 10 and 20 years, right? So instead of just taking semaglutide or Ozempic or whatever, consider Sloop. It's in capsule form, SLUPP. It's not supposed to be SLOP, SLUPP. Sorry for the misspell, you guys. And you can take 1 or 2 capsules of 250 mcgs every single day. We have a lot of patients who are taking this. This is the one I was telling you guys about. You could lose 12% body fat, possibly, or body weight, like mice did in studies in that first month. We've seen a lot of success with people taking a Sloop. Also, your endurance might increase by up over 70% or so, like the mice did in the study. There's a lot of data on this. Retatrutide is a triagonist. Sometimes people call it GLP-3. And that's something that's still available through Limitless if you guys want to consider that. And it's like on the page, but you have to click on VIP under Limitless and then put your name and email address and you can find it there. I can't tell you to do anything. I'm just telling you where it's at if you guys want to consider it. But this is the one, the GLP, that is the most comprehensive at addressing the root cause issues on why your body gains weight to begin with. And also if you have food cravings and you cannot stop. So, but I do not recommend starting with any GLP. I recommend starting with something like Sloop, SLUPP, and maybe like 5-amino, which is amino acid, right? 5-amino, 1-MQ. You could take that in capsule form from Limitless, or you can get an injection form from Biolongevity, or like I mentioned, that one I really love, which is fixing mitochondria, metabolism, and melting fat, and also muscle gain all at the same time. That's the combination blend, NAD, MOTC, 5-amino, 1-MQ from Biolongevity Labs. And then it's all a blend, which you could do that and Sloop and just that. I mean, that's 4 peptides, right? But I also recommend that while you're doing that, you take a pancreas bioregulator, and you can get that from Biolongevity. Also, when you go to their website, all the information is below, because when you're doing something like a GLP of any kind, your pancreas is kicking out more insulin. And there's a lot of convergence that's happening. There's a lot of cell signal that's happening. You want to preserve and you want to also empower your pancreas to keep up. There's a lot more I could say about that. We'll talk about it on the webinar, but I'm just giving you guys some advice for weight loss because I'm seeing so many people do this wrong. And what to do when you're doing that is to make sure that you're consuming enough protein. And what I mean by that is half of your desired body weight of protein. So if you're desiring to be 150 pounds, then at least 75 grams of protein on a daily basis. And what that would look like is maybe 4 ounces of something, 3 meals a day. And it could be fish if you want, it could be meat. But I know vegans like to say, oh, I'm going to get some pea protein. It's not the same. So yeah, I mix mine with fish and quinoa and red meat and eggs. Those are my main go-tos. And then you want some fiber. I always talk about, at least 35 grams of fiber. Most people can't digest that because they don't have the healthy microbes. You need healthy microbes to break down and digest the fiber that you're eating. A lot of people eat fiber and then they get bloated and they're like, I don't do well with greens, so I'm never going to eat them. That has nothing to do with your genetics. It has everything to do with your gut microbes. That's why we also like to make sure that we're looking at stool testing to make sure people have healthy levels of good microbes that are helping them break down the healthy foods and converting them to nutrients. Okay. Okay. So let's see. Energy drinks, people do energy drinks. Okay, let's move to the next one because, challenge number 2, your body is breaking down faster than it can repair. What most people are doing is the things on the left: ibuprofen, NSAIDs, corticosteroids, painkillers, rest only, surgery, or wait it out, right? We have all heard this. This is a standard conventional Western model. What that leads to is gut damage, a delayed healing, tissue breakdown over time, mass symptoms, weakening, slower recovery, longer recovery, scar tissue, chronic injury patterns, all right? What to do instead, and I'm going to say consider, and here is for all of you who are out there who are listening to me. Lots of my friends, I've recently had to go over there, help them, inject them, tell them what to buy, bring them peptides. This is becoming an epidemic at all ages, okay? These are people who have taken GLPs or not taken GLPs. These are people who are not focusing on the main things we're talking about. We're talking about foundational and fundamental medicine and foundational health, reducing exposure to toxins, prioritizing muscle building, and I'm talking exercising 4 times a week. This cannot be a luxury once in a while. If you're taking GLP, if you want to lose weight, you should be exercising. Bottom line, you should not be burning fat and not working also. You should not be melting fat without muscle gain, the two M's I'm talking about. So what to do instead, and this is what, if you've had an injury, if you want to make sure that if you do have an injury, you stay out of the doctor's office. And I'm not talking about, sometimes we do need surgeries. I had to have surgery on my back, on my foot, on my Achilles, and on my shoulder. I had some significant injuries from performing in high level professional sports. And so, yeah, I needed surgery. And sometimes people need surgery. Ideally, you don't get mesh, because mesh is a whole nother story. Watch the Bleeding Edge documentary about why not mesh. Anyway, what I will say about this is that a lot of people are having non-need for surgery issues. And so here's what you can consider instead. And either if you have the injury now, or if you are somebody who wants to have something on hand, if you do have an injury, or if your family has an injury, BPC 157, TB 500, and then also there's copper peptides. So there's something called the Glow Blend that they sell at Biolongevity. It has GHKCU, TB500, and BPC 157. There's one called the Clo Blend that are those three, and then also KPV. The KPV add-on, I do have a lot of people, a lot of patients we work with, a lot of high-level athletes, doesn't matter, women who had breast implants, or anybody who has a high parasitic load or struggles with allergies. That's a histamine crisis. That's mast cell activation. That's chronic inflammatory response syndrome. Why that Clo Blend has those three peptides plus KPV is because KPV keeps the histamine storm down. It's like the air quotes. I can't say it is because it's air quote. It acts similar to an antihistamine in the body so that you don't have these major flares. Because some people are like, oh, I took peptides and my body, reacted terribly. There is no side effects with peptides. They're not drugs. The word side effects is only for the word prescription, right? So that is the reaction that your body's having to taking peptides, because you probably haven't had them for such a long time. Your body's freaking out. So painkillers you could do instead of those things. You could do these peptides. It does tend to reduce inflammation, which is the main reason I have pain. You could also inject it close to the site of injury. That could be the ankle, that could be the knee, that could be the shoulder. Just grab a little piece of fat and then inject there. You can consider that. I will talk about all this stuff on my webinar. Okay, let's keep going to the next one. And I know I got to fly because the VIP group is starting now, and we have Coach Lisa who's doing that. But challenge number 3, your mood is not just mental, it's metabolic. People are doing antidepressants, withdrawal, sleeping more, meditation, ignoring the root cause. What that will lead to is symptom management, worsening the mood, still exhausted, no biochemical support, chronic low mood. The things to consider instead, and I've talked about this in my peptide power course. I've had other episodes, but I'm doing this kind of like an all-in-one, the highlights. CMAC is an amazing peptide that you could do intranasally or injection form. You can get the injection form in Biolongevity. The intranasal form you can get from Limitless. That's for people who have ADD, focus, and dopamine issues. And that's pretty much anybody who has any kind of addiction at this point to porn or attention. I mean, I struggle with that too. Not porn, sorry. I just wanted to clarify that. But shopping, whatever it is people are addicted to, sugar. CMAX can, and you can find all the research on this. This is in my Peptide Power course if you need that. Selenk is another one. People who have issues with calming, they need issues with, they can't feel relaxed in their own body. They need issues with, they have problems balancing their emotions. Selenk is powerful for that. And actually, I've done a show with Mike Adams. He actually gave his, I think it was his stepmother or mother-in-law. She was having seizures, big seizures, seizures or something similar to that. But major brain fog, like major dementia. That's what it was. And he gave her CMAC, and in one day she was like, whoa, my brain is back. Like her short-term memory was back in one day. So could you imagine if you're using these things on a regular basis, and they're meant to be pulsed 2 months on, 1-2 months off. I'll talk about all that in the webinar, and you can find that in my Peptide Power course as well. Sleeping more, people have a lot of issues with sleeping more. They are lacking human growth hormone production. And so this is where I like to bring in CJC epimorelin. That's 2 different human growth hormone secretagogues. It is not a human growth hormone. It inspires your brain through your nervous system to make more, and your endocrine system, to make more human growth hormone. 98% of human growth hormone is made while you sleep, but most people sleep sucks these days. So when you do this before you go to sleep, especially, your sleep should be better. And then 95% of fat burning happens while you sleep because of human growth hormone production specifically, and other things as well. So your body's going through a cleansing process when you sleep. It's going through a restoration process. So these types of hormones, also testosterone is more so for the men, but all of these things, anything that ends with epimorelin like that, testosterone, epimorelin, Semerolin, those are all human growth hormone secretagogues. And then also helps you to build muscle, reduce fine lines and wrinkles, have more energy throughout the day, better sex, all of that, memory. And then NAD and the metabolic blend that I mentioned earlier is really amazing for people who are like, I need to meditate. I need to like stop this, crazy brain. Most people are depressed because they are metabolically and mitochondria deficient, metabolically broken and mitochondria deficient. All right, next slide. And then we're going to start taking it home here. So challenge number 4, weight loss without structure. I already pretty much talked about this enough. If you are on a GLP, you should, like I mentioned, also be taking pancreatic bioregulator, number 1. And number 2, you should be taking a very powerful multivitamin, multimineral. Now we have that through my store. If you go to dianecasia.com, click on shop. The top left image will show you how to get to the cell core products that we have. We have something called core nutrients, which has a really beautiful amount of nutrients and vitamins that most people are missing. Do not miss that, because most of the time people eat less when they're on a GLP. So that's going to ensure that you get enough. That's why they're called supplements. It's your insurance. But most foods today are 1/5 of the nutrients that they used to be 50 years ago. It's just, that's why our bodies are so starving, because we're starving for nutrients. We're starving for minerals. We're starving for hormones, and we're starving for the things that we used to get in our food, but don't, because we're sorely deficient in those in our food, and toxins block your minerals from getting into the cells. So we're also more toxic. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And then challenge number 5, actually, before we get to that, what the data shows, up to 30 to 40% of total weight loss equals lean mass. This is why 12% of the population is on a GLP. We really, really have to reel this in and do this more intelligently. Like I said, I don't even bring GLPs in for certain patients until we've worked on the terrain first and the foundations. Everything we talk about in the Warrior Cleanse and environment, this is what we help you guys do. Lower protein intake, especially too, if you're not getting half your desired body weight in grams every single day, it means you have impaired collagen and bone matrix support. So if you want to look older faster and your body to break down, is you eat less than 1,500 calories a day. This is nonsense. This is absolutely nonsense. The many years when I was a bikini competitor, what I learned is what I'm teaching you here in part about macro intelligence. Okay, we need protein. We need healthy carbohydrates when you're taking a GLP, but most people miss that too. You also need healthy fats. We need to eat a balanced diet. It's not the carnivore diet. It's not the vegan diet. It's somewhere in between with healthy, balanced nutrients and density of macros. And most people are missing this mark. I teach that in the Warrior Cleanse. You're not just losing fat, you may be losing the infrastructure that's keeping your body strong. What's the point of losing weight if you're bedridden and now you're gaining weight because you lost your connective tissue and your strength from your muscles, and your bones are breaking down because we have osteoporosis on the rise? All right, next slide. Okay, I already talked about this pretty much. The importance of everything I talk about. Got to eat and healthy enough protein. You can move to the next slide, Paula. What to do instead? You guys got to be resistance training. Absolutely. 4 times a week, if not more. They spelled sloop wrong. Again, it's SLUPP. Minerals, especially D, K2, magnesium, and calcium. Okay, one stupid thing I got to say about what I'm seeing so much in the biohacking space, and it's insane. People are like, oh, what should I do for more mitochondria? Should I just be taking, should I just be sitting in front of my red light therapy thing all day? Or what should I'm going to take that blue, what is the blue stuff called, Paula, that we're always talking about? It's spacing me right now because I don't talk about it. What's the blue one everybody's talking about? I'm blanking. Methylene blue. Thank you. I had an I stuck in my head. Methylene blue. Well, I have 2 eyes stuck in my head right here. Methylene blue. It's a food. It's a dye in the medical system. You guys, we can help your mitochondria by sitting in front of the sun for 30 minutes a day. People are not getting that, but they're willing to take methylene blue and sit in front of their red lights and just sit inside all day. It's getting absolutely insane. So yes, you could also do things like MOTS-C, 5-amino-1-MQ, and NAD, and that's going to help your mitochondria production too. But let's stay with the foundations. We need sun. We need healthy sunshine. We need movement. We need water. Foundations are, it's not going to work. If I have anybody in my group who is trying to take all these peptides without doing the foundations, then I will pretty much talk to them the way I'm talking on this interview right now. But we got to have the right minerals. D comes from the sun, bottom line. And you need vitamin K to absorb vitamin D. Vitamin K mostly comes from your fiber. And you get minerals mostly from your food, not your water. So when people are talking about, oh, distilled, but that doesn't have any minerals. No, you shouldn't be getting minerals from water. You should be getting minerals from your food, especially fruits and vegetables. So anyway, we talk about minerals a lot when we're, especially people who are losing weight. healthy levels of magnesium to prevent constipation, because when people start taking GLPs, oftentimes they have constipation. Why? Because they're not eating enough fiber, they're not eating enough food, they're not getting movement, they're dehydrated, they're not getting enough sleep. This is why the foundations matter. GLP is not a magic pill. It is not the easy button. You've got to look out for the other things, and magnesium is really important for many reasons that I also put my social media channels. You can find that on X, you can find it on Instagram, Facebook, but it also supports bone remodeling so that you don't have brittle bones and osteoporosis. Even if it's on sloop, capsule form, helping you to burn fat, you've also got to, have healthy minerals and vitamins as well. And then as well, collagen plus amino acids. I do put 1 scoop of collagen in my drink every morning, my protein smoothie. Amino acids are in the form of peptides that I'm talking about, and electrolytes and fueling. We talk about electrolytes often, having healthy electrolytes as well as having creatine in your water when you're exercising so that you can also help your body's recovery. Same fat loss, completely different body outcome. Okay, next slide. And we're almost done, you guys. And then I want to invite you again, if you want to become a patient, dianecager.com/patient. If you want to watch the webinar, we will be doing that in 2 weeks on Thursday. I can't remember the date now, but it's dianecager.com/webinars. That's how you can sign up. Last one, injury, steroid breakdown loop. People get hurt. They do corticosteroid injections for temporary relief. And what to consider instead would be something like BPC, TB500, and GHKCU. That is the Glow Blend. You can get that. You can get them individually from Limitless, or you could also work with Biolongevity and get that in the Glow Blend formula. It has all 3. Repeat steroid use equals collagen breakdown, you guys. So people are like, why do I look so much older? It's because age. I'm like, no, how many corticosteroid injections have you put in your body? That's cortisol. And that's also reducing your adrenals' ability to produce cortisol. So again, we're telling our endocrine glands to stop producing, and no wonder why we have so many hormone problems. And women are grabbing for HRT at a young age, and men are low in T, et cetera. There's another way. Anti-inflammatories, you can, KBV is my favorite. I tell every woman, have KBV at your house, because most women are struggling with this. I'll get into this in the webinar, you guys. Instead of like anti-inflammatories, antihistamines, people who can't do parasite cleanses because they feel like their whole body reacts and they're sensitive to everything, KBV is a godsend. Painkillers, delay real repair. So all of these things, chronic injuries, I tell people wherever you're injured, you can inject the Glow Blend close to the area of injury and the fat portion that's surrounding it. And then that really accelerates wound healing and injury and collagen turnover and helping your connective tissues. And I just tell people to consider doubling the dose. And all of this is my Peptide Power course, then would be a regular dose. And the peptide, you can go to dianecager.com/peptides, and there is a free guide you could download on which peptides and what they help you do. And if you're just doing, like, let's say 5 units of BPC in a needle, pull it to 5, you consider doing 10 instead, double the dose when you're injured. Okay, next slide. And we're wrapping it up now. So when I get into corticosteroids, the bottom line is collagen synthesis decreases, your tissue degeneration increases, you could have future injuries, decreased bone formation contributes to furthering future osteoporosis and increased risk of tendon rupture, and it weakens structural integrity long-term. They reduce inflammation, but they also reduce your body's ability to rebuild. So this is a long-term damage if you're not addressing it at the root. The key takeaway here is most people are losing weight faster then their body can rebuild itself, and then wondering why they feel weaker, more fragile, and more injured. Fat loss without structure equals future injury. Muscle is not optional. Bone is not passive. Collagen is not cosmetic. They are your longevity system. All right, we'll wrap up there because I really wanted to speak to a lot of my friends who were asking lots of different questions over text, lots of different people who are reaching out to me. We are at an SOS in our world. We're seeing a lot of people struggle with, as I always mention, body pain, broken brain, energy drain, and weight gain. And that leads to the symptom train, especially if you're doing it with the Western medicine model. When you go get corticosteroid injections if you're injured, or you get antidepressants or antihistamines if you have sensitivities or your body's fully reactive. We talked about a lot of different alternatives today. And instead of reaching for an Ozempic pen or Wegovy or Mounjaro, know that you have the ability right now to purchase retatrutide if you want. They're going to be changing that by the end of the year. And then also one last thing I wanted to say, if you're on my email list, you guys would have seen this. Biolongevity is getting rid of and liquidating SS31 and also tirzepatide. They're never going to sell it again because those are going to turn into drugs. So you can get on my email list by going to dianecager.com/updates. But if you're not on my email list yet, you can go to dianecager.com/peptides, click on Biolongevity. You'll be taken to their website and you can see those ones that are on sale. You could get up to 90% off by purchasing them now because they're trying to get rid of all of it, because right now the Western medical mafia is taking these over as drugs. So SS31 is the most common one. My patients, my members know I've been so excited about this one for such a long time. But now you can purchase it until it's gone. And then it's going to be a drug. And this is for energy, mitochondria repair, your body's ability to repair the cell that actually is responsible for making your body's mitochondria, your ATP, your energy. So if you want to get rid of the coffee, save money on Starbucks, SS31 is an amazing one to start with. I'm going to buy a ton of those, as much as I can get. Tirzepatide is a great alternative if you're wanting to rotate away from retatrutide for cycling. I'll say a lot more in the webinar, dianekaiser.com/webinars. I'll see you there. But I really hope that this helped with all the things that most people are struggling with. And I will see you next week, if not at the webinar. Bye for now.